Experience Karen Hunter in a completely different way. Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're gonna love me. And Karen Hunter is awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of the Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power. A 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed. Dr. Kellie Carter Jackson is here. The book is We Refuse. We were having an off-mic conversation about the first hour of the show, and I was telling her about, how I presented everything. And you said something that I was like, that's what I was looking for. I was telling you about the why question. Why do we do the things? And you said what, Dr. Jackson?
I said, I don't trust anybody that hasn't questioned their faith, that has not had a crisis of confidence, that has not had a moment where they have been doubtful about what they believe. I have strong beliefs, but I also have doubts, and I think doubts are normal and healthy and good. And I think we should always question our values, because when you don't listen, it's a slippery slope. Like, when I say a slippery slope, I mean I have completely sort of disabused myself of the white evangelical church that I think now is not a religion, but a political cult. And I think that if we are not careful about sort of teasing out the things that are deeply problematic about what we believe, and holding it up to other critiques, if we're not careful, we will harm people. And I think a lot of people have been harmed in the name of Jesus, in the name of the church, in the name of their faith, wholesale, not even aside from Christianity. People have been harmed by faith. People have been harmed by dogma. And when I see harmed, I mean also killed. And and we have to be really careful about that. I don't feel I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, but I don't feel that I have to shove something down someone's throat. I feel like I need to live my values and live my principle and show love and care. And I try to do that every single day. But life is hard. Life is really, really hard. And people need to grapple with what their truth is and what they believe in, and they need grace to be able to do that. And so that's just how I've always sort of, approached it.
And if we're unable to be individuals in whatever walk we've walked, then it makes it easy for us to lump other people. So, as you were talking, I was thinking about Gaza and how all of the Palestinians are lumped into this category of unworthy to live, because if they were worthy to live, we would be way more outraged about what's happening. And the campuses that were on fire before the election are not on fire anymore. So are you afraid now? Did you lose your courage? Did you lose your interest? Those people still are suffering. So either we care about
and
people,
have been suffering.
Yes, but this is my point. But we have allowed ourselves to be okay with the othering of an entire group of people. For political reasons, for financial, whatever the reasons. Yeah. But that to me is also kind of a mirror of how we move collectively.
I think we don't, because I studied the abolitionist movement. That was my first book, Force and Freedom, was all about the abolitionist movement. I think within a Western context, certainly within an American context, we don't have the endurance that movements require.
Stamina.
When you think about the abolitionist movement, that was a marathon. Nobody knew when they started formalizing these American anti-slavery groups in the 1820s and 30s. No one knew that slavery was going to be abolished. It wasn't inevitable. It was something that they were like, by 1863, this is going to be, they had to commit themselves to doing this work, whether they got to see the promised land or not, like whether they got to, for biblical metaphors, but whether they got to see the end of slavery or not. And I think about that a lot. In some ways that encourages me, because I look at the moment we're in right now and it feels like darkness, but it also could be the precipice of something really great and wonderful on the other side. What feels like the brink of civil war, and was. Within another, 5-6 years after that, we had a whole new United States. And so what is, how do I have to train myself to think long term, to think marathon, to think mission, to think maybe not me, but maybe my children. What's my commitment level going to look like? We get tired fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't like being uncomfortable. We don't like
Child.
sacrificing. We don't like sort of doing this work. White people especially get tired very quickly.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to be comrades. They want to cut a check or
Well,
they want to sort of, check a box
when
quickly.
when have they had to endure?
Mm,
So, to your
yes.
point, you were talking about, it's like, okay, enough, we've done this. I said there was a window with George Floyd. I was like, you're
We
not
all
gonna
knew
write
that.
the guilt thing
Yep.
they gonna be tired of being guilty. And then the
Yep.
backlash comes because how dare you make me feel guilty about
Yes.
something? And I'm saying, why do you identify with the oppressor? Why can't we
Yeah.
talk about slavery? Why do you identify with the enslaver? If you're gonna quick to tell us my people came here from another place, I didn't have anything to do with it, then let's have the history lesson.
Yeah.
Then why are you
Yeah.
identifying with something
The
you had nothing to do with?
backlash was swift. I mean, if you think about 2020, summer 2020, by the fall, the school board meetings, the anti-DEI, the anti-CRT,
CRT.
see, within 6 months, you've got January 6th. That's 2021. Like January 6th of 2021 is 6 months after. I mean, we had rapid fire backlash. We are still dealing with backlash from symbolic trinkets. Do you know what I mean? Like we are not responding to like structural change in policy that we got. We are responding to symbolic sentiments and vibes. This is a backlash to vibes. Like that's what we're enduring right now. And we have to not meet tool for tool. I don't think you can, like Audre Lorde said, dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. But we have to meet the opposition with the same level of energy that they bring to us.
That part.
With the same level of tenacity and persistence and ferocity that they bring to us. And I think, because they bring all the big guns, literally. And I think we don't have that same level of opposition in return.
Well, we haven't built the muscle. So Reconstruction, Black people were either in the fields or on a breeding farm or being free in a world that could snatch you at any point in time and then re-enslave you, like Samuel Northup. So you had to have your head on a swivel.
You sure
so
did.
Endurance was part of the assignment. And you're still dealing with, before Jim Crow, like even worse Jim Crow laws, whatever, in states that were quote unquote free, you still may be a Black restaurateur where Black people couldn't come into your oyster bar. You know what I'm saying? It was wild. You still had to sit in different places and couldn't move about the cabin freely if they knew you were Black, like Hannah Elias, and then your whole life can get upended. So it was, your endurance was natural because you're coming out of the field. We had the Montgomery bus boycott, right? So that lasted a year.
A year. People
change.
don't realize. Try boycotting something for a year. Like, are we still boycotting Target? I don't know.
Yes. There's stock prices
like,
telling us that we are. We
listen,
have the endurance for that, but most of us weren't shopping there anyway. So.
I hope so, but I don't think people appreciate, again, the level of commitment and sacrifice. I mean, by the time the Montgomery bus boycott gets its victory, people have been carpooling for, months. They had walked to work. Imagine if you're like, hey, for a whole year, I lost 50 pounds walking to work. Like, you got a whole new lifestyle. You might even appreciate the alternative that you found for your life. It takes a lot to topple these systems.
So let's talk about, because part of this assignment here is to inspire somebody, because everybody listening, and we have people listening everywhere from Canada to Mexico and all over in every state. We have somebody listening to this show. Where you live, and I start to show, I try to say this every show, everyone lives somewhere. What is your responsibility to that place to make it better, right? And start with your household, start with your neighborhood. But beyond that, right, we are all on this globe together. So we are global citizens as well. So when you talk about the resistance and the refusal to accept oppression, give us some examples of that which can work, because I want to inspire people to build the systems that will be sustainable for
Yeah.
hundreds of years from now, thousands of years from now. But it
Yes.
requires us building today the cornerstones and the foundation for what that looks like so that we are
Yeah.
never back here again. Because
Yes.
this is exhausting.
It is. It is. I mean, the book is chocked full of examples of Black women in particular that have used their skills, their talents, their abilities to push back on the system. Sometimes that's involved, armed defense, that's involved protection. Sometimes it's doing what the Black Panther Party did, is creating free breakfast programs. It's saying, you know what? You know what is more terrifying to the federal government? Not an armed Black person, a fed Black person, a literate Black person, a healthy Black person. So we're going to create these health clinics and we're going to make sure everybody's got a warm breakfast. And you need groceries, we're going to make sure you've got groceries. Within a year of the Black Panther Party, people don't realize they put the guns down. They're like, actually, this is more a harm to us than it is anything else. And the ultimate sort of care and protection is fortifying our people, is feeding our people, is educating our people. You need to know the law. You need to know your rights. We're going to have these teaching clinics so that you can, know your rights. We're going to have mass incarceration programs so that you can visit your loved ones, so that you can talk about police brutality. It was about fortifying the community. So when I think about these things that people are doing, I often want to encourage people that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You do not have to swallow the ocean. You can partner with people who are already doing this work. 10 times out of 10, they are strapped for resources. They are strapped for volunteers. They are strapped for workers and helpers. A lot of times I tell people, you don't have to think that hard. Think about what you're passionate about and then pick 2 or 3 things. You know what I mean? Stay in your lane. Like, if
That's
you
right.
care about the environment, then focus on that. If you're a poet, you focus on that. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you can take on some cases, like however you can use your passion and your skills and talents, do that, because what it does is it chips away at the system. When I write these books, when I'm in my classroom, I can't swallow the ocean, but I can chip away at that system. Every student who comes into my room, every, person who comes to my talk or person who picks up my book, I am trying to equip you and fortify you so that you can chip away at the system. So that means it's going to be different for everybody. It means, some people might be on the picket line. Some people might be in the hospital room. Some people might be in the courtroom. Some people might be in the boardroom. Some people might be in the classroom or in their own homes. It is all how you want to use your skill and talents to contribute to benefit the larger community.
Amen. I love it. We Refuse is the book, Dr. Kellie Carter Jackson. So what happened? So we know Fred Hampton. We know what happened to him. We know what happened to Huey. We know what happened to Angela. We know what happened. We know, it.
Yeah.
You're right. The threat of feeding children and educating children was way more, because that's what Fred was doing. So why did he get shot in the bed with his pregnant?
Listen, he was building coalitions. That's the other
Yeah.
thing Fred Hampton was doing. There's that speech that he gives that most people know where he's like, we want Black power. Then he says, we want white power. We want Latino power. We want Asian power. Like, and people are like, what? And what he's saying is, no, everybody needs to be empowered. We are all getting our clocks clean. They started daycare centers where it's like, all right, white folks in this community, you gonna watch these Black kids. You gonna watch these Latino kids. Okay, y'all gonna help each other out. We're gonna do a cop watch. We are all going to look out for each other, because capitalism is killing all of us. And white supremacy, yes, it's killing you white people too. Like, let's talk about all the ways we are being harmed by these isms. And then let's work together to be a collective force. Right. And that was terrifying. If you want to just bring Black people together, that's one thing. But when you say, no, expand the tent, wider, deeper, that is what is terrifying to the federal government and the powers that be, because when you get that inclusive collective work, it is unstoppable. It is unstoppable. Right. And that is why racism is built on division, because the more you can divide and conquer, the more you can separate, segregate, the more you can keep people from dismantling these systems. And so I'm all about the we. I'm all about the we.
I'm looking at our time because we don't have much, so I'm gonna have to have you back, because I want to sit in the work that Fred Hampton was doing and how it got him killed and why it stopped. But let me take Max in Georgia really quickly. Who's been holding on? Max, welcome to the Karen Hunter Show. You're on with Dr. Kellie Carter Jackson. Hey.
Yes. Good afternoon. How are you all doing?
We're
good.
I had the pleasure of emailing you in terms of one of your books in reference to the Titanic, and I just wanted to say hello again to you. But to talk about the book that you're talking about with Reconstruction, one of the things I wanted your take on and what your thoughts were is that I think that the analysis of the Civil War is somewhat flawed. We always are looking at it through the eyes of the oppressor, as opposed to those who were freed. And I'm saying that because of the fact I think that more than looking at what transpired, it probably should more so be looked at probably the largest slave rebellion the world has ever seen. And I say that based on the fact that the war originally was not in our interest, technically. It was basically from rebelling against the status quo, which was still white supremacy. It was us that transformed that war to emancipation. And I think it was the powers that be of Black people from running away, from running and creating those camps, from the words of Frederick Douglass, from the spying of Abraham Galloway, who transformed that war to emancipation that ultimately gave us our freedom. And I think that we need to be looking at it. And I was just wondering what your thoughts were, because I had proposed that, but people give me a little pushback on it. But I mean,
I think that's valid. I think what you're saying is valid. I think that, there are a lot of scholars that talk about the Civil War being a slave rebellion, but the thing is that Black people are doing multiple things during this sort of uprising or this war. They are contributing as soldiers. Over 250,000 Black men fight in the Civil War, women as well, because Harriet Tubman's leading men into battle. But Black people also fight with their feet. They leave the plantation. They leave the place of their enslavement, and they go further north, and they get to Union lines, and they pretty much withdraw their labor, and that cripples, the Confederacy. The Confederacy cannot survive without slavery, without Black labor. W.E.B. Du Bois says the Civil War is actually fought over labor issues. How do you get a rich man's war and a poor man's fight? How do you get non-white, not slave-holding people to contribute, to fight in the war? You have to equip them with white supremacy. You have to empower them. And so he says, this is about labor issues. This is about who's going to be on the bottom. This is about capitalism. So it's a lot of factors that take place in the Civil War for sure, but it is a war that does not have success without Black contributions.
That's right.
Does not have success without Black leadership.
I'm from Jersey. Lincoln did not free the enslaved people in New Jersey because Jersey was part of the Union. And so the Garden State still had their enslaved. And,
sure did.
And he didn't care about whether people were enslaved or not. So this romanticizing and mythology around our founding fathers and heroes and others, we need to start telling the truth. So I appreciate
the slaves freed themselves.
Yes. Max, thank you. And Dr. Kelly, I'm looking at the time, so we don't have much, but so I want to have you come back, because I want to do like a work session where we break down what Fred Hampton's vision was and how we can carry that, because we are going to need everybody. We're going to need some John Brown, some Thaddeus Stevens. We're going to need some Charles Sumners. We're going to need some
Ida B.
people.
Wells.
I named white folk on purpose, though. Some Viola Wozels and some Goodmans and Schwerners. We're going to need some people to step up and be a part of this. But also we're going to need safety. So we refuse, because Fred got in a way that is so horrific. And shout out to the chairman, his son, who was in the belly of his mom at the time, who's still out there carrying the work. But the cover, you have a woman dressed in a Victorian sort of white, with her hair.
Yes, this is Taha Clayton, a Brooklyn-based artist, Taha Clayton, wonderful Black man who created this huge portrait. The actual picture is about like 7 feet big. It's
Oh, wow.
it's huge. And it's called Soldier of Love. And if you look at it, it's a Black woman with a rifle. It's got a line of laundry in the back. Looks like she's sort of representative of a woman of a time in the late 19th century or early 20th century. And she's got the gun pointed downward, but she's in a protective stance. She is looking out for her people. And at the same time, while she's looking out for her people, she's also doing her work. You know what I mean? Living her life. And I looked at this beautiful woman and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the cover. I feel like I know this woman. And my editor found this picture in an art gallery and he was like, wow, this looks like Kellie's cover. And when he showed it to me, I was like, oh my God.
Introducing a new podcast. Karen Hunter is awesome.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're gonna love me. And Karen Hunter is awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of the Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power, a 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. So check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed.
Karen Hunter is awesome. A new podcast from Karen Hunter.